Did you know that Elon Musk, Walt Disney, Martha Stewart, Dave Ramsey, and countless other successful entrepreneurs went bankrupt at one point in their lives? Now, I consider myself a lifelong student of business, and after interviewing over 500 successful entrepreneurs on my own podcast, what I found the most fascinating are not stories of success, but stories of failure, because we can learn from their mistakes. So in this video, I'm going to review 8 of my favorite life and business lessons that I've learned from entrepreneurs who have gone broke. By the way, if you're new to this channel, my name is Steve Chu, and I cover all things business and e-commerce on this channel. I've run a 7-figure online store selling handkerchiefs over at bumblebeelinens.com for the past 17 years. And if you're interested in learning how to sell online, make sure you sign up for my free 6-day e-commerce mini course below. Now on to the lessons. The number one life and money lesson that we can learn from broke business owners is to understand the dangers of leverage. Now, running any business usually requires some amount of capital, but let's talk about e-commerce because that's what I do for a living. When you run an e-commerce business, you constantly have to be purchasing inventory so you don't go out of stock. And here's what most people don't realize. When you manufacture your own private label product for sale, the factory often takes a couple of months to make your goods. And if your products are flying off the shelves, you may find yourself having to front the money for your next production run of products before you've sold out of your existing stock. And when this happens, it can be tempting to take out a loan in order to pay for this inventory, especially when interest rates are low. Now, one of my good friends fell into this trap and nearly lost all of his money. Because his products were selling extremely well on Amazon, he decided to take out a second mortgage on his home in order to fund his next inventory run to avoid going out of stock. Now, he could have played it safe, but he wanted to grow his business at all costs, and I get it. But then the pandemic hit, which caused his sales to tank. All of a sudden, he had excess inventory in stock that he couldn't sell, and he had a large loan to pay back. Now, I'm not going to reveal who this person was, but if you listen to my podcast, you can probably guess who I'm referring to. Here's another story of a famous entrepreneur who almost lost it all. Dave Ramsey was a millionaire at the young age of 26. He owned a ton of real estate, about $4 million in value with $3 million in loans. So overall, he had about $1 million in net wealth. But during the Reagan administration, there was a change in the banking laws, and Dave's bank responded by recalling all of his debt. He didn't have $3 million in cash, so they foreclosed on all of his properties. He ended up losing everything, including his fancy Jaguar. Now, growth is all fine and good, but be careful to not overextend yourself financially. When times are good, it can be tempting to bet it all, but you should always have a backup plan in case things suddenly change. Which is a great segue into the second business lesson of all broke entrepreneurs. Don't be too greedy. You want to know why there's so many ads for get-rich-quick schemes on YouTube and Facebook? You probably saw one right before this video. It's because these programs prey on people who are greedy and want to make money fast. It's also why all these Nigerian scams still exist, because they work on some people. Now, you might think that successful entrepreneurs who are rich already don't have greed issues, but no matter how much you have, you always want more. It's just human nature. So how can a multimillionaire possibly lose all their money and go broke? Well, it's because when you are rich, you tend to take on increasingly larger bets. Now, I don't consider myself a rich person by any means, but I am pretty well off. Once you start making any amount of money, opportunities start to appear out of nowhere to invest your money. Now, over the years, I've been tempted to go all in on many questionable investments in other people's businesses. I've also been tempted to take out loans to scale my own e-commerce store. And similar to my friend who mortgaged his house to fund his next inventory run, it all boils down to greed. The more you want and the faster you want it, the more risks you'll have to take. Which is why this next lesson is so important. You have to have financial goals in place to make sure that you don't succumb to greed and bet it all on black. Now, when my wife and I first started our e-commerce business, our goal was to just make enough money so that we could spend more time with family. We weren't trying to start the next billion-dollar company. We just wanted financial freedom so that we didn't have to spend 40 hours a week at an office. But as soon as the money started flowing in, I developed this fever and I wanted more. In our first year of business, we made over $100,000 in profit, which was already more than enough for my wife to quit her job. But my ambitions were sky high. So we set these ridiculous revenue goals every single year. And when we hit them, we'd celebrate for a day or so, and then set another crazy goal for the following year. And eventually, it got to the point where my wife and I were working ourselves ragged for more money that we didn't even need. Finally, my wife broke down. We had a heart-to-heart, and she reminded me why we started our businesses in the first place. And today, we make way more money than we spend, and that's good enough. Without financial goals in place, you will inevitably want more. And greed will eventually lead to your downfall. By the way, if you're interested in learning how to start your own online store, make sure you sign up for my free 6-day e-commerce mini course below. Which brings us to lesson number 4. Just because someone appears knowledgeable about business doesn't necessarily mean that they are killing it. A long time ago, a man whose name rhymes with Evan Avid was a popular YouTuber who sold courses on how to sell on Amazon. He'd film videos next to fancy cars and even gave a tour of his mansion. But even though he looked like he was killing it on the outside, his businesses were hurting. One of my friends, Brandon Young, initially caught him fabricating an income report for his Amazon account by forgetting to Photoshop a comma in his Amazon income report screenshot. Then, CoffeeZilla did a full expose on him and exposed all of his scams, and eventually the FTC filed a class action lawsuit and he lost all of his money. So if something sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. If you see an ad for anything that promises making money with little effort in a short period of time, just run away as far as you can. Now this next lesson is something that I learned from broke entrepreneurs, and that's to understand the limitations of your own knowledge. Now I don't think I've ever told this story publicly, but I actually lost a ton of money during the dot-com bust of 2001. And at the time, I didn't have any businesses, and I was an electrical engineer who knew very little about investing in stocks. But what I did know about was tech. So I started my investing career by buying tech stocks that I understood well. And everything I bought just kept going up. And at the time, I just thought I was invincible. So I started branching out beyond tech, buying medical stocks, banking stocks, you name it. Whenever I got a random stock tip from a friend, I acted on it and everything was going great. I just couldn't lose. I even got cocky and started buying stocks on the margin. Buying on the margin is when you borrow money from your broker to leverage your money to buy even more stock. But then the market bubble busted and I lost all my gains and more. A lot of the medical stocks and random stocks that I bought literally went to zero. Now hindsight is 20/20, and looking back, I should have stayed in my lane and just stuck with tech. Which brings me to the next lesson that I learned from other broke entrepreneurs. You should always be cautious of following anyone's business advice because nothing is black and white. A strategy that works for one person may not work for you, and you must understand the entire story behind every case study that you read, especially in today's age of social media and quick tips. For example, Amazon is one of the biggest online shopping companies in the world. And a big reason why they're so successful is because of the Amazon Prime program. With Amazon Prime, people pay once a year to get free shipping that's really fast, in just 2 days. And as a result, people with Prime membership spend more money on Amazon and just keeps them coming back to shop again and again. Now, if you were to read a case study about Amazon, you might be tempted to implement your own Prime program for your store, but it probably wouldn't work because your store is not Amazon. Now, I can't tell you how many case studies that I've read and implemented in my own online store that did not yield anything even close to the same results. One time, I read a study where Google tested over 50 different shades of blue for the links on their website and determined that one shade of blue made them over $200 million more. Take everything that you learn online with a grain of salt because every business is different. I once had a student who listened to one of my podcast episodes and tried to copy my pricing strategy where I raised my prices 33% across the board. So he tried this too, and it ended up killing his sales. Because what he didn't realize was that because I sell my products into the wedding industry, my customers are much less price sensitive, so I can get away with higher prices than other online shops. There are no hard and fast rules in business, and you're doing yourself a disservice by blindly implementing strategies without understanding the full story. Now, the next lesson that I learned from broke entrepreneurs is that you must learn from your mistakes. It's foolish to do the exact same thing over and over again and expect different results. If your business is currently stagnant and you aren't generating any sales, you have to switch things up. If you're running Facebook ads, getting traffic and not making any money, well, you either have to change your website or your ad copy. If people are adding products to their shopping cart but not checking out, then you must change your checkout process. Now, if you can't tell why people aren't buying from you, then install a website tracking software like Hotjar so you can watch your customers in real time. Waiting it out is rarely a good strategy for any business. In a lot of cases, any action is better than no action at all. Which brings me to the final lesson that I've learned from broke entrepreneurs. There's no perfect business guru. What you are seeing on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok are people's highlight reels, and there are always ups and downs for every business. I once interviewed a very successful entrepreneur on my podcast who went from 0 to 2 million in just 11 months. And while we celebrated his growth on the episode, as soon as I hit the stop button, I asked him, "Man, growing that quickly must suck." To which he replied, "Oh yeah, it was one of the most stressful periods of my life, and I was actually extremely depressed." Just remember, nothing out there is exactly how it seems on the inside. If you're looking to follow someone online, make sure that you resonate with their message and that they are authentic in what they tell you. If you enjoyed these 8 lessons, there's more where that came from in this video where I teach you my rules for getting rich.